Welcome to CU Interviews, a publication of Agoracom in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important developments at their companies. With us today, I'm ecstatic to have for the first time ever, Brad Wazell. He's not only president and CEO, he's also the founder of betterU Education Corp. The company trades on the TSX Venture under the stock symbol BTRU, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under 50GA. Now, for those of you who are new to the story, and that's pretty much all of you because this company just started trading on the TSX Venture Exchange in early March. This company owns the only global education marketplace serving India, and we're going to talk about that with Brad in a second. But many of the world's online education providers have partnered with betterU in order to access the Indian market. Timing for the company couldn't be better because the Indian government has mandated to educate and skill up 500 million of its citizens by 2022. And in fact, the country is expecting online education this year, 2017, to double from $20 billion to $40 billion. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. Excited that we're on the stock exchange and what we're doing in India. There a few weeks ago. Nothing but great opportunities, and it's looking very, very good for betterU. Glad to be here. Really am.
Well, let's talk about some of the specifics behind the company. When one hears marketplace, the first thing we think about typically this day and age is Amazon. So explain to everyone at home, what's an education marketplace and specifically the betterU marketplace?
Well, if you look at Amazon, I'll use that as a reference because you brought it up. Amazon provides a connection between the purchaser and the provider of whatever they're selling. An education marketplace and how I built this business for India was just that. Tons and tons of content around the world, top leaders from every country that has access to this content. But the biggest challenge is, how do you know what's relevant, what you should be taking, what's the best of the best? You don't. There's so much noise in the marketplace that you need to figure out how to bring it all together. A marketplace does that. It brings together all these leaders, and then you help provide visibility and awareness to these leaders to the mass population of the country. So our education marketplace provides multiple categories from kindergarten all the way up to corporate programs and everything in between. So we provide access. If you're a family living in India, your dad works for a corporation, you need skilling up programs, we have it. If you have a son that's struggling with math, we have it. If you have a wife that wants to become an entrepreneur, we have programs on that as well. So it's to create this ecosystem of learning across the entire spectrum, and that's where our education marketplace we'll strive.
Now, this is more than just setting up some software and loading it with some content. You took 3.5 years to build it, so the hurdles are high. What is that? What took you that long to put this together in order to be able to structure it ideally for everybody in the household, from K right through to corporate jobs?
Yeah, you know what? My vision for this was to provide opportunities for every individual to learn and grow, right? And when I talk about every individual, I mean everybody. And when you're looking at the emerging market like India, there's educational challenges across the entire spectrum, different ages, different classes, reach across the country. It's not as simple as, here we have content, let's put it online, let's sell to this mass population. There's an opportunity, let's tap into it. I am a serial entrepreneur, so I have built many companies in the past. I built and sold an ed tech company in 2011. I started working on this actually in 2008. My idea for this came about back then, and I've been planning it ever since. We really started focusing on betterU in 2013, so it's been 4 years now, and I spent years of planning. I just didn't start building things. I went down to India. My last trip, which was last week, I got back. It was my 25th trip to India in 4 years. I was there a lot, and it was to really understand what's the root problem with education, what's the root problem with technology, what's the accessibility challenges, patience with government, even with high school students. I've spent time with the students to understand what are their ambitions, what are they trying to do, what are the roadblocks that they're facing. And then from there, once I had a good idea of it, then I started building the plan on this is how we can solve this problem of mass education.
And that's what I find really impressive about the company. It's not just, all right, let's get some software developers together and build this platform, load it with some content, see if we can sell it to a bunch of people. And that hurdle that you put in place is pretty incredible. But here's what I want to ask you. You could have selected any market in the world. And someone like me, my first intuition would be, well, why wouldn't it be the United States or China? You chose India. Why India?
You know, very good question. The reality is North America is oversaturated with educators. Ed tech exists everywhere, in every first world nation. There are so many companies, thousands and thousands of content, learning management systems. There's so much out there. When I was in China, manufacturing for one of my other companies, I saw the struggles with the country in terms of skills development. I saw that there was a constant, do we have the right skills? Do we have the right education to advance the individual population skill level? So I started thinking to myself, you know what? There's so much education around the world. This should not be a problem. So I decided to look at, from an emerging market perspective, what were the leading emerging markets that Canada was focused on? Because my vision was also tied to how do we ensure that we're connecting into countries that Canada has pre-qualified and helped build a lot of infrastructure into. I always look at don't reinvent the wheel. Canada has already spent thousands and thousands and thousands of man hours across billions of dollars into certain countries. Why not leverage that? So I looked at the three countries Canada was focused on: Brazil, China, and India. We went on a trade mission to China and realized that there was challenges with censorship of content, things had to be inside their firewall. That became too much of a constraint, and I realized it would be too difficult of an uphill battle. Brazil, the challenge with that is Portuguese, right? English wasn't a dominant language in the country. So when I went to India, it had the right mix, right? My first trip to India was 2010, and I went once on a trade mission with the Canadian government, and what I realized was the Prime Minister Moody had a mandate to skill up 500 million people. Very ambitious goal. 500 million people is a lot of people, and without access to online education and quality education from around the world, next to impossible to achieve. The other thing is Indians are very tech savvy. I was surprised to see how many tablets and phones and multiple phones that they have. The third one, which I thought was quite interesting, is I didn't realize before I went there, English is the dominant language. So when I realized that, I thought, you know what, they have the right ingredients, the right mix. And to be honest with you, after I started going to India, I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with the food. People were fantastic on a regular basis. I enjoyed going there. I enjoyed the culture. Everything about the country, to me, resonated. So it made sense for me to just focus on India.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, because I'm sure a lot of people at home have seen these kind of plans before. I've seen a lot of retail-oriented plans. Let's build an app and 1 billion people will download it and we'll make a lot of money, right? We all hear it. We hear this. How are you going to reach 1 billion people at the end of the day? Because you've got the marketplace, you've got the infrastructure, fantastic. You've got the global education partners now who almost have to use betterU in order to access the Indian market. But now how are you going to reach that entire population? That's a big undertaking from a marketing point of view and then a support point of view. Tell us how you're going to tackle that, because without that, it's very difficult to actually execute.
You're absolutely right. It's funny, I identified this as a challenge back in 2014, 13, around there. When you're talking about 1 billion people, visibility across all the states, all the different classes and languages is very, very, very difficult to do and extremely expensive. Most educators that have tried coming to India have run into this problem. So they focus on selling to a corporation. Selling to the mass population is a whole other ballgame.
Sure.
But my vision, again, was we want to sell to everybody, right? Not sell, that's the wrong word. We want to provide access to education to everybody, right? And the only way you can provide access to education to everybody is to be able to communicate with everybody on a regular basis. So I looked at, how do we communicate with the mass population? And the only thing I could think of, and this is where we tied up with Times of India, was mass marketing. Who reaches everybody on a regular basis? So Times of India, which is the Ben and Coleman Group, these guys are the largest media conglomerate in the country. They own TV stations, radio stations, largest newspaper, magazines, billboards. So I started thinking, if I can get a partnership with these guys and they can provide us with mass marketing across the country, then what that would do is it would provide visibility about the quality of education we're bringing, our partnerships, our marketplace, and on a regular, consistent basis, people would see that from a credibility perspective that we are credible. So in 2014, I met with Times of India and spent a good 6 to 8 weeks every single week at their office, going through our strategies, our plans, them challenging me on everything. And ultimately, a year later, came down to they invested 150 crore of media spend in our company, which is equivalent to about $29, $30 million Canadian. And that provides us with the largest marketing reach across the country for any educator. So aside from accessibility into the country, which is a different challenge, we now have visibility, which is what a marketplace needs in order to be successful, right?
Now I'm going to hit you with the devil's advocate on the other side. So if you do have this great marketing machine built in, Now you run into the potential risk of, and we all remember that IBM commercial, the dot-com days, where everyone was looking at their computer, and a few orders came in, they're happy, and a few more orders came in, they got really happy, and then a lot of orders came in, and they all panicked, saying, "How are we going to actually service this at the end of the day?" So, what kind of infrastructure do you have set up in order to be able to support what hopefully is going to be a great response to this Times of India marketing program?
Another great question. What's interesting about our business model is we're asset light. Because I looked at this too. I said, when you're looking at a mass population, the hardest thing is what happens if this happens, right? You all of a sudden you get a billion people coming to your marketplace, and if you have all the content on your marketplace, how are you going to service those issues? So the way we set this marketplace up is we set it up asset light, kind of like Uber, right? We don't own the vehicles. We provide access to the vehicles to the passenger. It's the same with our marketplace. Any educator around the world that we've talked to, one of the biggest challenges we ran into during our research period was they don't want to give us their content because they need to proctor their learner, their content's their IP. So we built this marketplace where through APIs we connect our infrastructure with their content. So at the end of the day, when a learner comes on our marketplace, they're actually registering with us, purchasing with us. They see all the videos, and we represent our partners as though it's them. And then once they complete the transaction, they go into the learning environment of that institution. So now they're with that institution. So all the infrastructure, all the support, everything that's required for that institution's content is done by the institution. So what we then become is a marketplace that connects people back and forth, that provides the visibility, that provides the access, the payment gateway, all that kind of stuff. From a support perspective, we also are sitting on Amazon Web Services, so we sit on the same technology that some of the largest companies in the world sit on. So because we are asset light, it's very easy to facilitate growth. We can have 1,000 content partners, and it won't have a load on our infrastructure. And I set that up purposely because we need to meet the needs of everybody that was going to be part of this big puzzle.
And for everyone at home, for those of you who hasn't dawned on yet, this is the strategy that the fastest growing companies, the unicorns, are now utilizing. Right? You've got what Brad brought up was Uber. Doesn't own a vehicle, doesn't own anything, but it's the platform that brings me together with the driver that's 5 miles away from my house or my business to get everything done. We also see Airbnb, who's a $50 billion company. So I need to stay at a place in India, let's say in Delhi. I go to Airbnb. Airbnb doesn't own assets, doesn't own hotels, doesn't own rooms, doesn't employ the people. It just connects me with a guy named Brad in India who wants to rent me his condo for the weekend. So I'm very excited. This is just my own commentary on the side. I'm really excited for everyone at home about this business model because it's proven and it works.
The other thing I just want to mention to this is, because many people don't realize this, but when you start going into an emerging market, one of the things that we all take for granted is how we pay for things. So if I want to buy something today in Canada, in the US, I use my credit card. Most people don't realize that in the mass population of the country, 98%, or I think it's less than 95% of the population just don't have credit cards. So there's a fundamental disconnect in them being able to buy it. They can go online, they can see all the programs offered by the Harvards and MIT of the world and the Udemys and edX and all these different partners. They can see all their programs. But the reality is they can't connect. They can't buy even if they wanted to. So there's this fundamental challenge that aside from visibility, there's the accessibility. Most people in the emerging markets just can't access the programs that we have available. So with our business, we also set up an Indian entity that has an Indian bank account and an Indian payment gateway. So we collect in rupee through debit cards, net banking, wallets, wire transfers, all that kind of stuff. We're able to facilitate now people on our end buying through us in order to get access to these courses, which is
and that's why that touching on the point I made at the beginning, it's almost hard to believe that you're the only global education marketplace. But how much of an advantage does that give you? Because I'm assuming all these content providers, they don't want to take the time to set up, each one of them set up a payment gateway. So am I wrong in assuming it just makes it easier to say, let me partner with betterU, yeah, we'll split some of the revenue, but I don't have to go through this entire process of creating payment gateways that are unfamiliar to them?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. That's definitely a good point. But if you look at most educators around the world, and I've spent a lot of time with colleges and universities here, independent groups. If you look at a university or college, their international team typically isn't large. It's a small team. And for them to go and set up what we've built will take them a lot of time and money. And the problem with education in general is people aren't willing to spend millions of dollars setting up an infrastructure to sell a course that's $50. It just doesn't happen, right? So from our perspective, I looked at this back in 2008. Where's the market going to go in terms of education? Emerging markets were absolutely going to be on the radar within 5 to 10 years. So I started planning for that back then, and we invested a lot of our own money and time and effort to build this infrastructure. So we're at a state right now where we've positioned ourselves to be a leader, where any educator around the world that's looking to come into India can go, you know what? Exactly to your point. Why would I spend the amount of money and time and effort for an online education program that's really incremental revenue to them? Why not partner with betterU, get on their marketplace, get the visibility, the payment structure is all set up, and the learner ultimately comes back to my environment anyways. So I'm still going to get the learner from a risk to cost perspective, much easier, much more advantageous to deal with us than to try and do it themselves. It just doesn't, for them to do it themselves doesn't make any sense.
So Brad, we've got the infrastructure in place. We've got the global education partners who want to use the gateway. You've got Amazon as a platform. You've got the payments figured out. You have the marketing side figured out. I'm encouraged most of all, though, about the fact that you ran a test of all this back in 2016, because the big question is this going to work? You ran a 2-week test, and you got a big smile on your face. How'd that 2-week test go as an indication of what you may see going forward?
Well, it's in any business that you build, right? The validation is the response from the consumer market. So we did a test back in March last year, March 21st, I think, and we ran it for about 6 weeks. The test was ads that we placed in with Times of India. We placed in Mumbai, Times of India, Mumbai, Mir, and we tried a bunch of different cities. We tried front page to third page to fifth page, different sizes, placements, just to see from different cities the responses we get. Within that period of time, our marketplace went from pretty much nobody that knew about us to about 70,000 or so unique visitors. And then we had about several thousand registrations, several hundred purchases. What was even more interesting from my perspective, like that shows validity, but was the inquiries that we got. So we had a call center. We had one girl set up, and then we had our office in India. We had about 1,000 inquiries between chats and calls. The telling part of that was there were a lot of people that were really interested. They wanted to know more about what we were doing, how we were doing it, the connection between Canada, the U.S., India, and different parts of the country. It was very interesting, and we used all that data. And by the way, we only had 235 skill development programs. We have close to 10,000 now, a year later. So the scope of growth was significant. So we stopped all marketing, we stopped all activity to build the lessons learned that we got from that test into our new system. Our Facebook page went from 8 people to almost 20,000 followers, which was quite
6 weeks, and in 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was quite quick. It was a little overwhelming. My team, I kept getting calls from my Indian team saying, "Brad, we're answering calls from morning till night. Like we need to stop." So we ended up stopping, and over this last year, we built out everything. We listened to the market. We listened to what people were asking about, and we built out. Originally, it was just 235 courses, like I was saying, skill development courses. We now have an ecosystem that goes from employment to education. Our name, so just so you understand the scope of what we're building, is betterU, and we designed that for a reason. So betterU stands for providing better education, which will lead to a better job, which will lead to a better life. And all those things start with creating a better you, right? So that's how we came up with that name. But that better education, better job, is that ecosystem from education to employment. So we as we were building out the lessons learned, we incorporated our marketplace job bank. So we have a job bank on our system now. We have about 100 corporations through some recruitment partners that we've brought on board. So now we're helping move people from education into employment.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, because you never lose the customer at the end of the day, and the more comfortable they become with the platform from the education point of view, then it's just natural that they're going to continue when it comes to the employment side, and then when they're skilling up, even after they got their job. So this is exciting. I know we can't talk about projections and things like that, but from the look on your face, it looks like you are really looking forward to this. So do you have an ETA for the launch? When does the machine really turn on, and the marketing machine and everything just start going? Do you have a ballpark?
Yeah, next few weeks we've part of our after we went public with some of the funds that came in, we were in India for the last couple of weeks and building our team over there, our customer service support team, our BD team, our sales team, doing interviews and all that kind of stuff, trying to get all that set up to go for the launch. Our marketing people, we hired another director here of marketing, we hired a marketing agency, brought them all together. So now we're working on the campaigns and bringing everything together. So the next few weeks or so, we're going to start launching our mass campaigns, which is absolutely wonderful. It's exciting. It's exciting because the years that we put into building this, and it's interesting because when I first started building it, people would ask me, "Let me understand something. You're trying to skill up a nation. You're trying to train a nation." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Because that nation of people will get skilled up, and they'll help educate. They'll help service the world. Like these guys, India has the population that can be the workforce of our world. To be quite honest with you, and to build that, people right away they look at it's impossible. It's not going to happen. It's too many things to put together." 4 years later, fast track to today, we have the largest education marketplace, global education marketplace that exists for emerging markets. And now people we talk to are seeing it. They're like, wow, I didn't think this was possible.
Well, and look, these are my words. I want to be clear to everyone home. These are my words, not Brad's. But, it is possible because we see how Uber started from an idea and a concept, a little local testing and what happened. We see what's happened to Airbnb. We've seen what's happened to all these disintermediators. So I am especially hopeful and look forward to having you back after the launch and then after all the other milestones, period. But I think you've got an incredible company set up. You've got the infrastructure, you've got the partners, you've got the payment processing system in place, you've got the support, you've got the marketing. So it looks like you've got all, and you've done the testing that gives you just a brief, good glimpse as to what you might expect. This is potentially one of the most exciting companies we've ever seen launch in the small cap space in Canada. So, congratulations to you and your team, and looking forward to what's coming in the very near future.
Us too.
You've been watching Brad Wazell. He's president, CEO, and founder of betterU Education Corp. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol BTRU, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under 50GA. Get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or stock symbol so you can look up fast profile information, watch webcasts like this and future interviews that we're going to have with Brad. Start interacting. Tell your friends about it because this is going to be a fantastic company to watch. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.